Does anticipation drive dopamine? Dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, but its real role is more about motivation and anticipation rather than actual pleasure. Neuroscience research has shown that dopamine spikes before we achieve a goal or receive a reward, making us more driven to chase experiences. In this segment, we'll discuss how dopamine anticipation shapes motivation, habits, and even addiction, and how understanding this can help you take control of your drive and desires. Let's dive in.
Man,
That's a
interesting
heavy
stuff right
one.
there.
That's a heavy one. That's a heavy one. When I seen those topics for this week, I was like, whew, I gotta put my thinking cap on this week.
I mean, that's the goal. That's what we want to do. We're going to create some ripples. Get the positive impact, the negative impact, and then figure out what we can do to understand both sides of the story, so we can find a resolve to move forward.
Right.
So again, dopamine. This in light of kind of like our pattern, or kind of like our help series on just these chemicals or these feelings and these emotions that we've been talking about. We discussed cortisol. We discussed serotonin. We've discussed stress. We've discussed we did those things, and now we're discussing dopamine.
Dopamine.
And the reason why this one is important is because, again, as we'll discuss, it's important for us to understand that when we are feeling that feeling of butterflies, or it feels good, or that good feeling, like that's just dopamine. So when we are feeling these things, it's just us understanding that that's what's happening.
Yeah, what I found interesting about looking into the whole dopamine um, science and effect on the body, it was like dopamine is released in a lot of instances that we don't even realize.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're anticipating something, dopamine is released, and then a lot of times we confuse that or mislabel that dopamine hit as sometimes confirmation or the feeling that's that confirms we're going in the right direction,
or this is the right person.
This is the right like when
I got that feeling.
Yeah, I got I got knots in my stomach or whatever. But a lot of times, come to find out, that's dopamine, releasing in a chemical reaction in the brain. Because it says through anticipation. So anytime you anticipate a reward, a goal, or your favorite food, or being around your favorite person, or going to your favorite place, or
so it's like reward management in a sense.
Yes,
but we have to be conscious of that in regards to managing that thing we call dopamine.
Yeah, very much so. And also it also can work in the opposite regard, with dopamine, where it could make you drive for something or not.
Yeah, motivation, right?
Yeah, motivate or not drive for something, or whatever the case may be. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say before we kind of get a little too deep, pause into this topic. I wanted to let's as always, let's get a definition.
Yeah, we didn't go to our facts.
Let's get a definition first before we proceed.
This is dopamine, a fun molecule that you've probably heard of. Now, people always talk about wanting hits of dopamine, but that's not actually how it works. So dopamine is a molecule that motivates us to get things or to avoid things. But we all have a baseline level which travels around our body in our nervous system all the time. So when you achieve something or satisfy a desire, like eat chocolate or have sex or get 100 likes on Instagram, you experience a peak in dopamine, which feels good. But afterwards, you can then experience a temporary dip below the previous baseline, which is why sometimes after achieving something you really wanted, you actually feel a little bit worse. And you also have a readily releasable pool of dopamine, which your body taps into to create these peaks. But if you try and get these peaks too often, like going on Instagram too frequently, then the pool of dopamine doesn't have time to refill. So the peaks aren't as high as they were before, and Instagram no longer makes you feel as good. But the good news is that you can consciously improve your dopamine levels over time by not fixating on rewards and outcomes.
Yo, that was deep, because what I just realized with dopamine, and as it relates to anticipation, you can anticipate. This makes so much sense. A lot of things,
I had a revelation too.
Why things don't work out, because even like with relationships, or even when you anticipate to get the the shoes that you always wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and they just don't quite fit right. Like the dopamine sets the bar here
Mm-hmm.
with anticipation,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're anticipating, and you want them shoes, you want that steak, you want that girl, you want that job,
Mm-hmm.
and the bar is here. And
Mhm.
then when you actually get it, it's not what you anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, that dopamine level,
It drops.
drops.
Yeah.
And then that's when I guess the feelings of
Regret,
remorse,
buyer's remorse, exactly.
all that come in.
Yeah.
Disappointed, you
Yeah.
don't like it, you over it, like ugh.
But then in reality, it's actually not buyer's remorse. It's just our dopamine levels come down.
That's all it is.
That's all that happened.
Because
right.
the anticipation
is gone.
phase is over.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You done got it,
Right.
or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And that works with social media.
Yeah.
Sometimes you anticipate. You anticipate to see who liked your post.
Mm-hmm.
You anticipate to see if that girl commented.
Mm-hmm.
You anticipated to see if that influencer shared your post, or whatever the case may be.
If that guy viewed your story.
Right. And when they don't,
mm-hmm.
your dopamine drops. And therefore, that's why you're back to scrolling.
You're feeling depressed, or you feeling like,
and you're right back to scrolling to get that dopamine up again. So it's like,
because now that anticipation kicks back.
Now and I go back to anticipate. Well, what else do I find? Well, what else would I stumble upon as I do my scrolling?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
That's very interesting, because the revelation I had was going back to just relationships in the past. To your point, because I remember I would always, again, have that reward of like, oh man, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get this girl. And the anticipation of doing, so that's kind of like also too where that fog thinking comes in, where it's just like you're doing whatever it takes to make whatever reward you're trying to go after happen, in this case a woman. And then you get it, and then afterwards you just kind of like I said, once you got the reward that you was going after, quote unquote, now like again you come down and you start to quote unquote see the world a lot more clearly. And you're just like, oh man, like, yeah, I mean, it was fun, but I don't think this is gonna be, because now, I realize that, we're not in alignment, you know what I'm saying? Or we might, or she might just be, she might not be what I thought she was, or he might not be who she. So now it's not necessarily us thinking that they're not the one. It was just like, nah, our dopamine level then came down, and now we can see clearly.
And I just realized as well, anticipation feeds your fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why the dopamine is so high. The anticipation feeds the best case scenario in your mind, in your world, in your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why when you achieve said goal, that's that deflation of dopamine, because now you're dealing with reality.
Yep.
And then
exactly, it wasn't what you anticipated. That fantasy,
your fantasy world. Oh, when I get with her, it's gonna be, oh, we're gonna have 3 kids and get a dog and have a picket fence, and then you get her and she, she's slapping you and cussing you out every 5 minutes. Like it's not.
But even with the ladies, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, the 6'6", oh, he's 6 feet. He's 6 pack. He earns 6 figures. But then you see that he got, a 6 cents car going up the side of your head. You know what I'm saying?
Or 6 other women.
Or 6 other women. You feel me? And now it's a problem. But again, the reality disrupted your fantasy.
Right.
Which made your dopamine level come down. Because again, everything is all fun and games when the dopamine levels is high and you're getting what you want. But the minute you don't get what you want, that dopamine come down. Now you start seeing things a little bit more clarity. A little bit more clearly. Mm-hmm. And now you got problems. You know what I'm saying? Right. Now you're trying to negotiate.
Right. Right. And I didn't even realize that when we were, doing our research and all that, and getting everything together. But and I was trying to figure out what's the the correlation, and like what's the nugget here? What is the gem we're dropping on them? And I was like, you know what? And it just dropped on me just now while we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a doctor that has something to say about dopamine too.
Yeah.
And the effects of
what
it.
he got to say.
And let's check this out.
Talk about dopamine. Dopamine is so important. It is called the molecule of more because it makes you pay attention. People think of dopamine and happiness and pleasure And sometimes that's true. But I want you to think of it more as motivation. What am I paying attention to? And what does it drive me to do? It is one of the primary neurotransmitters of addiction.
There you have it. The doctor told you, you
Hmm.
know, dopamine is the molecule of more,
Molecule of more,
and it
right?
has connections to addiction as well, which is a whole nother psychological ramification, which can help us understand why we're addicted to things that we're addicted to. Because if dopamine is the molecule of more, you want more. You're enticed, you're intrigued. It's like, I gotta get it, I gotta get it, I gotta get it. That kind of translates to addiction. Because you want that high, you want that feeling, you want that escape, you want
Hmm.
that moment of release or peace, or
Right.
you want more. You
More.
want more, as it relates to social media. That dopamine hit, I want more, I need more
I
of that
need more of that dopamine.
gratification,
Right,
I
right,
need
right, right.
more, I need more of it, I need more of it. So it could be a motivation, and it has its place as motivation, because
Hmm.
like if you're motivated to uh to get your doctorate
Right.
degree, that dopamine will set in
Hmm.
that case as well. And you do what you got to do. I got to do my thesis, my dissertation. Like,
Right.
you on you drive, you like, I got to get this done because I want this doctor before my name, or
Hmm.
whatever the case may be. And so it works in that instance as well. And dopamine is very powerful.
Him saying the molecule of more, where it took my mind, it made me start thinking that, are we obsessed with dopamine? Can some of us be obsessed? And what I mean by that is, quite often we'll say, men or women, they're doing this for attention. But now that we're talking about dopamine, he's talking about the molecule of more. Like, is what we think attention really just their obsession with dopamine? Their obsession with trying to, like you said, constantly get that hit. So that's why. So it's like we think we're doing it, or we say they're doing these things for attention, but is it really that they're just had that they're just addicted to and obsessed with dopamine to the point where they just always are doing these things to be in the center of attention? But that center of attention is, to your point, giving them that gratification of having all eyes on them, which makes them get that dopamine hit.
Yeah, and I don't think people are obsessed with dopamine. I just think that's just a reaction of dopamine. And I
Oh,
think,
obsession is a reaction of dopamine.
no, the obsession is the reaction of dopamine. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not that they're obsessed with dopamine. That's just a reaction of dopamine, because you can't control that.
Hmm.
There's no button that we could say release dopamine now, or I could take a dopamine pill. I mean, they have
I
things that
probably
make you
do.
feel right, right, right. But
Or maybe that's what drugs are. Or maybe that's where they, because that's why I'm saying, like, going back to now, since he talked about the molecule more so addiction. So when someone is doing drugs, yeah, they're doing drugs to get high, but when we're saying high, that feeling is, again, we're in a sense saying that feeling of high is just an extreme dosage of dopamine. So are they addicted to the drug, or are they obsessed and addicted to just the feeling of being in a constant state of like dopamine? You know what I mean? That's what I'm kind of like getting at,
hmm
because that's when he was saying, again, molecule more. It had me thinking back to that Joe Button clip, where they were talking about the Adam and Eve, whatever, listening to a
yeah,
comedian talk about
I
Adam and
wish we
Eve.
had that queued
Yeah.
up, because
and then uh, and then they asked him, basically saying what he said about just like, Adam and Eve had it all good and dandy. And then Adam looks at Eve and says, "It's like, like, look, we can basically live the best life ever and never die." And she says, "But I still like still feels like there could be more.
it's not enough.
It's not enough." That's what she said. It's still not
hmm
enough. And then Melissa Ford, she basically proves the man's point in real time.
Everybody got the joke.
Right. Except
Everybody
for her.
laughed. All the men got the joke,
Except for
and
her.
she's sitting there like,
Then he's just like, Mel, you didn't think that was
You didn't
funny?
think that was funny at all?
I'm still waiting for
I was
more.
just looking for more.
And it's just like, you just prove. So, but again, that looking for
That's
more,
a twofer. That was two jokes.
you know what I'm saying? Right. 2 for 1, right. But that looking for more that we think makes women oblivious or absent minded, or is it just that they are just constantly looking for, like you said, that dopamine, like you said, that molecule of more?
Or is dopamine released more regularly in their brain?
than ours, right?
than ours?
Right.
Or are there more triggers for dopamine for the female
To
brain
be released, right? The way that based
compared to
upon
the
how they're
male?
wired and we're wired, right?
Right.
Because we always say
That's a
that,
good point.
you know what I'm saying? But men and women are wired differently. So is that a factor in that the difference in that wiring to where they just a little bit more sensitive to dopamine than men, which is why as men we think that they're doing everything they're doing for attention or for whatever. But it's just because again, a lot of times when we do listen to the ladies, they'll say they're doing this. I want them to feel better. But that we now know that feeling better is the molecule of more dopamine.
Yeah.
So, like you said, like maybe, if you're doctors, let us know. If you feel me, if y'all peeping, let us know what y'all thoughts are in the
Yeah,
comments.
where's the neuroscientists out
Are
there?
we off base? Are we on base? Like, let us know.
We on to something? We don't know. We're not
We're just
claiming to
having a
be
discussion about the
doctors.
topic, right?
We're just talking. We're just talking. There's another video we want to show you too, and get your reaction on. Let's check it out.
So this guy was struggling in a major way. So about 3 months ago, he was watching a lot of videos online. He was texting a lot. He was mainly playing video games. He wasn't really enjoying them as much anymore. And he decided to do what some people call a dopamine fast, but for him that meant no video games, and he did 2 weeks of no screens. So a little less than 3 months later, I actually talked to his parent today, working full time, off all ADHD meds, has a girlfriend. I don't know if that's related or not, probably because he's got his life together a little bit more. He's very focused on his work. He's excited by things, and he allows himself a short period of time each day where he plays video games, and he enjoys them again like never before.
And
Man, that was pretty good. That dopamine fast part was interesting because kind of like going back to what we've been talking to us now being conscious that when we do get this reward that we've been anticipating and we come off that dopamine high and we're quote unquote crashing and we think that we're feeling depressed or this ain't the one or like, oh, I felt this way yesterday, but now so us understanding that now and now incorporating a dopamine fast where we now understand, like I said, why people be like, oh, I got to take a break or, I need to just take some time away. So when we are now hearing these things from people, us just being a little bit more understanding and that, okay, well, maybe they're unconsciously doing a dopamine fast, what I'm saying? So let me just let my homie chill and then we'll reconvene when they're better.
And I found out that, well, not found out, but listening to the video and the guy's example, the young man took a break from social media, from video games, screen time, from video games, and found himself being more productive.
Yes.
In a lot of other areas, which tells me that this whole dopamine hit is crippling and it's very addictive, especially with social media. How many of us can scroll on our phones for hours? I mean,
I'm
hours.
guilty of it.
I lay in the bed. I don't go to sleep for another. Once I get in the bed, I'm up for another 3. I don't even want to say. I'm up for another 3 to 4 hours, like
aimlessly scrolling.
Like, oh shit! It's like I gotta make myself like I have to disconnect. And then thing I noticed, like when like if you stay up all night scrolling on your phone, like your brain stays active.
Yeah.
And I could recall many days waking up the next day, and I feel like my brain is like still. When I wake up, like my brain is like
still like you left the motor on.
Yeah, like I left it fucking running.
Yeah.
And it's like, God damn, I'm like, oh, I need to like. Sometimes I had to like shut all the blinds and everything, and then like go back to sleep for like another hour just to make sure I shut it down so I can go and just start the day.
So things like having a night routine matter.
Yeah.
Where again we are purposely minimizing, ideally eliminating, quote unquote screen time once we get into bed. Like so but again, these are things we have to be conscious of and then discipline ourselves too. So it's like when I get into bed, the phone is on the charger. So that might mean now we have to put the phone on the charger on the other side of the room. You feel me?
Yeah, you got to be proactive.
Got to be proactive. And because that's one of the things that I've learned and I've been doing as of late, as I've been more conscious of my dopamine addiction to social media. You've always pointed that out to me. But again, it's like now at night, what I do is I'll put the phone on the charger, but I'll put it on the other side of the room. So it's like I can't even be in the bed. you know what I'm saying, looking at the phone, as opposed to it being on my nightstand and it's right there. And then I done also made it more convenient by going to get the long charger cable so I can roll over and get comfortable in my spot and still be on the phone. And to your point, I told myself I was about to get into bed and go to sleep, but then, you know, just the whole SpongeBob thing, you know, a few hours later, you know what I'm saying,
You're
you're
still
up.
there. You're still there.
Like you said, mine's still on. And to your point, waking up in the morning feeling like I left the motor running. You know what I mean? And so I can definitely relate to that.
Oh, well, thank you for giving me the credit of pointing that out for you. To be fair, the point I was pointing out to you was how you'll be on your phone in the middle of a conversation. Like it'll be I wasn't really talking about the aimless.
But remember,
scrolling.
but I'm saying, but remember what the doctor said though. Like dopamine lets us know what we pay attention to.
Yeah.
So again, to your point,
and what we're not paying attention.
So again, to your point, yeah, we all having a conversation, but I'm paying attention to the phone, which means that I'm getting more of a dopamine hit from paying attention to this phone than the conversation that I'm in. So, so like I said, to your point, now we understand that it's not necessarily me being, you know, it's not necessarily a distraction or me not taking it seriously. It's just more so like, bro, like put the dopamine down. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like put the drugs down, bro.
Put the needle down.
Yeah, put the needle down, Diesel. You know what I'm saying?
Diesel.
Put the phone down. You know, the same way you would tell the heroin addict, or put the needle down, or the dude who sniffs heroin on coke, put the dollar bill. It's just put the phone down, because that phone is because again, at that moment in time, I am addicted or obsessed with dopamine.
Because you can't compete with that.
Yeah. Right.
Nobody outside can compete with
and it's obvious because again, as you said, it's 6 of us having a conversation and y'all all talking, but
you're like, dude,
Diesel. What's up?
No, he tried to act like he's following the conversation. That's the funny part. He tries to act like he could do both and follow the conversation. You'd be like, this the third. Now he might say, hey, yo. Not realizing we done called you twice before the time you answered.
Yeah. You know, even I'm not perfect.
No, we all do it. I mean, we all at it.
You feel me?
I'm just.
But it's being conscious of them though, and that's what people don't want to even acknowledge. So it's like I can acknowledge that. Yes, like I have an addiction to aimlessly scrolling or just scrolling through these digital streets.
See what with me the difference is I get to scrolling aimlessly and, you know, when I'm by myself, you know what I mean? Because I love being I love being around people. I love being in encounters and conversations, and I love groups and, you know, having someone around. Like, so when I'm around people, like I'm not the one that's at dinner scrolling on the phone. I'm not the one at the, out with friends and I'm just on the phone, like, cause I'm trying to engage with the people that I'm with. I love being around people, but oh boy, when I get home and I'm by myself, that's all I got.
That phone is your crowd.
You know, that's my lick. But yeah, so I guess the point we're making is just to be aware of the effects of dopamine and how it can shape and guide our drives, behaviors, our desires, our behaviors, our habits, our proclivities. You know,
I think we got one more video that's kind of actually talking about that.
Oh, okay, let's check it out.
Turns out most people spend 70% of their life living in survival and living in stress, so they're always anticipating the worst case scenario based on a past experience, and they're literally, out of the infinite potentials in the quantum field, they're selecting the worst possible outcome, and they're beginning to emotionally embrace it with fear, and they're conditioning their body into a state of fear. Do that enough times, body has a panic attack without you. You can't even predict it because it's programmed subconsciously. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, get ready because it's going to feel uncomfortable.
That was interesting because it gives the whole flip side to it, because it's still talking about anticipation. And so, you know, dealing with people, sometimes we do anticipate the worst.
Yes.
We don't always, as we were saying prior, speaking about anticipating something that we want or Like,
we anticipate what we don't want.
Sometimes we anticipate the worst. Like, what if this doesn't happen, or what if this, or what if there's a big earthquake, and then when that has an effect on us as well. Is dopamine released?
Well, that's what I have to just say. Like, because it sounds like what he just said. When we anticipate the best, we release dopamine, but when we anticipate the worst, we release stress or cortisol.
Oh, the cortisol.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was trying to listen in to see, like, is he saying dopamine is released in those instances as well? But I don't think he said.
He said stress. Yeah. So stress that we know that molecule is cortisol.
Right.
So but again, the common denominator between the two now being anticipation. So how we manage anticipation will determine if dopamine is released or if stress is released. But also too, whichever one it is, we still got to manage both.
Yeah, and they both have a direct effect on our body.
Yep.
And
from a psychological and physiological perspective,
yes,
right?
Very much so.
Yep.
Very so. Being aware of it is just just advantageous to us as human beings.
Yep.
So, anything else you want to share on this topic?
Just keep your dopamine in check.
Check that
dopamine in check. Yeah, keep
that dope down.
Facts.
Get off the dope.
Say no to dope.
Down with dope, up with hope. Ain't that what Jesse Jackson said?
Yeah. Facts.
Something like that.